How do people's race or religion impact how you view them, consciously or subconsciously? How does the media affect how you view certain groups of people? How do your own identities impact how you view others of different identities or backgrounds? These may be things that you are aware of in the back of your mind, but maybe not things that you are actively thinking about on a day-to-day basis. For me, though, growing up, I have been acutely aware of the religious and political tension between the United States and the Middle East. I'm Lebanese, and my whole family is Muslim, and most of them live in Beirut, Lebanon. My dad, although he is Lebanese, grew up in Liberia, in Africa, but was able to witness the Lebanese Civil War in the 80s after he attended a university in the States. Through him and from traveling in the Middle East, I've learned a great deal about Middle Eastern politics and culture. I've seen firsthand this gigantic rift between the two cultures that I am a part of. And to be honest, it terrifies me. Other people who may not have this personal connection see violence on the news, and maybe they have empathy for the situation that is occurring, but for me, it's more than that. It's personal. I see violence in Lebanon, and I fear for the safety of my own family. I think that we as a society need to reevaluate this fear that we have of others who may be different from ourselves that is causing this great divide to occur. Let me put this into a little bit of a larger context. According to the Council on American-Islamic Relations, hate crimes against Muslims in the United States increased 91% in the first half of 2017 compared to 2016. 91%. That is an incredible number that speaks to the Islamophobia that is permeating our communities. The American Psychological Association reports that levels of anxiety and depression in Arab Americans is increasingly high compared to those of the general population or even other minority groups, and it's due to the oppression that they face on a day-to-day basis. These trends are obviously deeply affecting people's lives in our own communities and inspiring fear through this Islamophobia. But what can we do to combat an issue that seems so large, so out of our control, and sometimes so far removed from what we experience in our own lives? I believe that it starts here on a face-to-face level, which is something that we can all affect. We need to be encouraging building a bridge between our culture here in the United States and those in the rest of the world, especially in the Middle East right now. We need to be encouraging our youth to interact with people of different backgrounds than their own, even if it is difficult or even if it is uncomfortable, so that they can cross these cultural barriers for the sake of a peaceful and prosperous future. So this past August, I had the opportunity to take part in a program that I think embodies the type of education that should be prevalent for our youth today. A group of 12 Iraqi students spent 2 weeks here in Rochester being hosted by Allendale, and they took part in a leadership program that focused on civic engagement, interfaith studies, and diversity and inclusion, specifically for women's rights, LGBT rights, and disability rights. I myself had the amazing opportunity to host 2 beautiful young Iraqi students who I became incredibly close with over the course of the 2 weeks, Fatima and Sama. Fatima lives in the north of Iraq in Kurdistan, and Sama lives in the south. So growing up, I had spent a lot of time around Lebanese people and my parents' friends who were Jordanian and Syrian, but I hadn't spent a lot of time around people from Iraq, which is obviously a country that the United States has had a pretty rocky relationship with in the past couple of decades. But I remember vividly sitting in the first session that day, and the Iraqi students and the American students were separated, and they were asked to come up with cultural stereotypes that they thought generalized them or didn't really encompass who they were. And the American students came up with things like, "We're not unintelligent." But the Iraqi students immediately said, "We're not war, we're not terror." And I obviously didn't go into this program thinking that that was the case. But the ability to look my host sisters in the eyes and say, "I know that is not who you are, is an incredibly powerful and life-changing experience that speaks to how we can transcend these labels that we think confines us to our own bubble. So over the course of these 2 weeks, I was able to witness how these amazing Iraqi students embody just the potential that they are bringing to their communities in Iraq. They want nothing more than to inspire positive change in their own communities, and that was what they were here to learn. We became incredibly close. We became like a family, and we still communicate on a week-to-week basis in our group chat, which is incredible. After an experience like that, it's easy to see that we are all just teenagers taking Snapchat selfies together. I think that every young person should be able to have an experience like this, where they're able to connect with someone of a different background, race, or religion than their own. Because once you do that, it is able to see that we are able to see that we are all fundamentally the same. We are one human race. And no matter how different you think someone may be from yourself, you can still find some kind of common ground with them. We need to reboot how we view relations with the Middle East. We need to reboot how we view Muslims. And we need to reboot how we educate our youth on these topics. I'll leave you with a quote by Khalil Gibran, who I admire quite a bit. "I love you when you bow in your mosque, kneel in your temple, pray in your church. For you and I are sons of one religion, and it is the Spirit." Thank you.